Okay, here we are. We're going to do Pliny the Younger, and that's Plyny the Younger. And we're when in Antiquity Unveiled on page 87. And so here's Pliny. Sir, time is nothing to a spirit. We never grow old, but we are cramped by our mortal conditions. I was appointed to the position of consul or procurator of Bithynia, Bythinia, and Pontus about the last part of the first century of the Christian era. By Trajan, Trajan, of Rome, and as I am an important witness in the settlement of the dispute concerning the reality of Jesus Christ, I come here today by the invitation of a Persian sage, Arnamar. That's Aronamar, and parentheses. The latter is the controlling guide of the medium, end parentheses. One of the greatest proofs that the Christians bring forward to establish the historical existence of Jesus is my letter to Trajan. I did write such a letter, but the name Christian was not to be found on it. The word is a forgery. The word I used was Essenes, not Christians. The cause of my inquiry into the nature and customs of the sect calling themselves Essenes was they were what you moderns call communists, and Trajan wanted to know whether they interfered with the rights of other people. I found them a very quiet and inoffensive class of people, holding everything in common, and I so reported to the emperor. I had no knowledge whatever of the so-called Christian religion. I do not come here in malice to give this communication, but I do come because I wish to testify to the truth. As I hope for future happiness, I affirm that what I have stated here is the positive and absolute truth. I have fulfilled my mission. Signed me, Pliny the Younger. All right, that was Pliny. If that communication is genuine, then the disputed points as to the letter of Pliny to Trajan are clearly explained and set at rest. That it is genuine, I confidently believe. The letter to Trajan was by Pliny, but made no reference to a sect called the Christians, but to the sect of Essenes, that's Essenes, from whom the Christian priesthood borrowed much of what they claim was divine and infallible truth. The Essenes were not Christians, having existed as a sect long before the alleged birth of their god man. Refer to the Biographiae Universale for sketch of Pliny the Younger. For letter, refer to Biblical, Theological, and Ecclesiastical Encyclopedia of McClintock and Strong. Who can read that letter attributed to Pliny as set forth in the above work, and believe that he, the friend and proconsul of the beneficent and gentle Trajan, ever wrote it? From beginning to end, it bears the mark of the pious errors of the Christian priesthood, who sought to find or produce some plausible historical evidence that Jesus had an existence at some time and in some place, but they have manifested greater desperation of ever being able to produce such evidence, in seeking to make Pliny a witness for them, than we supposed possible. These pretended Christians of Bithynia, Bythinia, and Pontus, Pliny is made to tell us, worship the image of Trajan and the statues of the gods, and that the temples of the pagan Romans, which had been almost forsaken, began to be more frequented, that the sacred pagan solemnities, after a long interval, had revived, that victims for sacrifice were brought up, whereas for a time there were few purchasers. What kind of Christians were those? In the light of the above communication, in the light of the above communication of the spirit of Pliny and the internal evidence of fraud and forgery in the letter attributed to Pliny, we may conclude beyond all doubt or question that the letter was a pious fraud of a most unpardonable character. It is no wonder that the independent investigators of Christian evidences have regarded it as spurious. Pliny says he did write a letter to Trajan reporting the result of his investigation of the practices of a religious sect of communists calling themselves Essenes, made at the request of the Roman Emperor Trajan, and that he found them a quiet, inoffensive people, that it is certain the historical character of the Essenes will show, and out of those few facts the spurious letter was manufactured. Is there any limit to the baseness of the founders of the Christian religion? We have failed to reach it yet. Applied to the mystico-ascetics, the Essenes, the letter of Pliny becomes the most appropriate and intelligible, but is applied to the Christian sect, wholly irrelevant and absurd. But, in the light of the explanation contained in the foregoing communication, the true import of Pliny's letter becomes clear, and that as late as the beginning of the 2nd century A.D., no such person as Jesus Christ was known, and no such people as Christians ever had been heard of. Thus do facts pile up to show the magnitude of the religious fraud that under the title of Christianity has been practiced upon the civilized world. In the view of such spiritual developments as the above, if it is asked, of what use is spiritualism, we in turn ask, of what use is truth? All right, I like that ending there. So that was Pliny the Younger, Antiquity Unveiled, pages 87 and 88.